Hi, this is Glenda, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make these watermelons with multiple soap or soap dough. I'm going to start with the process of the making of the soap dough, and to do that I'm mixing first the colorants, which is a quarter teaspoon of green pigment oxide powder, and there's going to be also for the red trial by from Nurture Soap, and I'm going to include in the description box a link to the blog post where you can find the list of ingredients used and the amounts. I also made in another batch a darker green with Savage Green Mica from Nurture Soap and also a lighter green with neon powder. And by the way, this is a collaboration with Britney from Valley Soaps. She will be making a soap with these watermelon embeds that I sent her. And I'm looking forward to seeing how she did it. If you want to watch the video, it will be linked in the description box below as well. I'm using the spatula to break down any clumps that may have formed in the mica or in the pigments. These tend to happen especially with pigments, and it's important to break them down so that they don't go into the soap already clumped. Then I'm going to measure the oils. I'm making a small recipe here, about 8 ounces of oils, because I'm only doing these two colors. However, to make the other colors, I did make another batch before. Then I'm going to mix the lye, but before I do that, I'm going to put on my respirator. I'm already wearing gloves, and now I'm going to add either goggles or a face shield. First, I measure the exact quantity of lye needed, and then I weigh the amount of distilled water needed. I'm going to add the lye to the distilled water and not the other way around, slowly while I am stirring it to make sure that it gets dissolved. Make sure that when you do this, the window is open and you have good ventilation, because there will be fumes involved. If you want to avoid the fumes, you can freeze the water and it weighs the same whether you're weighing ice cubes or liquid water. It helps also with the temperature because this gets pretty hot. I'm actually going to take the temperature and you're going to see that it has reached in just a few seconds 200 and something degrees Fahrenheit. Once the light is dissolved, I'm going to leave this container in an area away from children, pets, and any other adults until it reaches the closer I can get to room temperature. After a couple hours, it has reached 83 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 Celsius, and I have warmed up the oils of the recipe to 82 Fahrenheit or 27 Celsius. So now it's time to mix them. I'm going to incorporate it slowly, the light water solution, to the oils, and initially I'm just going to stir it. And then I'm going to blend it with a stick blender until it reaches a light trace. I am not going to use any fragrances, so from here I'm just going to go straight to dividing the soap batter into the colorants that I prepared beforehand and just stirring each colorant individually until it's well combined, and then I'm going to pour it into my silicone cavity mold. And after pouring them, I'm gonna make sure to cover them with a plastic deli sheet, or saran wrap can also be used to make sure that there is no contact with the air. So it has been about 12 hours since I made the soap, and I came to check on them and they feel really hard, the red one and all of them actually. So I'm going to go ahead and unmold them. Interestingly, the red one feels warm, as if it was going through gel phase, but the other colors are not. They just feel like they're at room temperature. But the color looks good. So what I'm going to do at this point is that I'm going to grab them individually, and then I'm going to put them inside a Ziploc bag because they're not ready yet. They're probably still going through saponification and it needs to finish. So I'm going to work on them. Maybe I'm going to wait another 2 or 3 days to actually make the watermelons with them. Okay, so I have here a watermelon piece for inspiration. And I actually left this sitting out for about half an hour. Not on purpose, but because I got sidetracked doing something else. However, it seems it's still fine. I also have here some white. It's actually on color soap dough. I just pretty much took some red soap dough, rolled it into a bowl, and then I flatten it some. It's fairly thick because later I'm going to cut it once it's a little bit hard, once it has cured for a few days, so that it has sharp edges and finish like watermelons would if they've been cut with a knife. This is close to 1.5 inches of circumference, or 4 centimeters. So I'm going to sort of cut it with it just to have an even shape. It's fairly thick. So now I'm going to surround this with white. So I'm pretty much just going to roll it into a snake shape, and then I'm going to flatten it like so and put it around this. So pressing against it, make sure it sticks together. Then I essentially repeated the same process with the light green color, which is neon, a small quantity of green neon pigment, and then the same with the darker green, which was made with a savage green mica. And by the time I made the darker green, I figured out I could go faster if I just if I roll it into a log and then cover it with plastic and use a roller to make it flat. And it also gave me a more uniform thickness throughout. Then I felt like adding a little bit more detail, and this will be completely optional, but I came back with the light green color and just added small strips all around the circumference of the watermelon circle. Then I use a pen to sort of create that pattern, and I finish it by rolling it back into the surface so that it wouldn't be bumpy and it would all become smooth. And at that point it's ready to be cut, so I'm going to have 2 embeds out of this. If you feel ambitious and you want to make more at the same time, I'm going to leave you with a video on how I made a slightly longer cane. The concept is essentially the same, except I make a larger like rectangular shape, and I'm doing the texture now on the outside, just adding strips of a lighter color and then trying to blend it in with a pen, and then making it flat again and smooth with the roller, and then doing individual layers of lighter green, and later doing another layer of the white just to simulate the transition that we see in most watermelon slices. I am using water as an adhesive for the layers because some of them had dried up a little bit and I felt it needed it. And once I do like a sandwich of the dark green, light green, and white, I rolled. Initially, I was going to roll a log of the red, and then because of the size that I wanted the embeds to be, I switched that to do like a half a moon, just pretty much the size of the watermelon slice. I trimmed the excess with a knife so that it will all be even, and a couple days later I attempted to cut the the individual embeds, and I did it first with a knife, which caused the layers to separate. So I had to glue them back together with some alcohol and by pressing. So for the next ones, I took out my tissue blade, which is a very sharp blade, and you need to be really careful when you use it. And with that, I didn't have any issues of it breaking apart or separating. It was pretty smooth. I did messed it up because my fingers had some of the red soap dough from before. So in the process of cleaning it, I rubbed it with some of the alcohol, and this caused a sheen on the outside layer, which actually made them look a little bit more realistic. So that was a happy accident. And at the end, to add the detail of the watermelon seeds, even though most watermelons sold are seedless nowadays, but just to give the illusion, I'm using face paint and a very skinny and thin round brush. I'm using alcohol as the water to activate the paint, and I'm pretty much just resting the brush into the surface of the embed, and that creates an oval shape very similar to what the watermelon seeds are like. Anyway, this is it, and I hope you like the video, and make sure to go check out Britney from Valley Soaps.